Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi amma ba'du. This is our last meeting before the month of Ramadan, which will be taking place inshallah this Friday or this Saturday. So we're all responsible to making a conscious effort to try to find out when the hilal is sighted on Friday or Saturday. So in keeping with what only makes sense, we're going to take this opportunity out to deal with any questions that we have concerning the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan. Now, Akhi. What is the point of Ramadan? What is the purpose? Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And as Allah mentioned in the Quran concerning Ramadan, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. All you who believe, fasting has been made obligatory upon you as it was made obligatory upon those who went before you, in the hopes that you would develop taqwa, in the hopes that you would develop a taqwa, becoming God conscious. So the ayah shows that the people before Muslims in the previous communities, they used to fast. That's in their books. So the purpose of Ramadan is to develop piety inside of the person. Which brings us to the obvious issue. We've fasted a number of Ramadans every year, and most of the time given an opportunity to make Hajj or to perform Ramadan or Umrah, but especially Hajj and Ramadan. Those people who perform Hajj and Ramadan many times say, I could have done better. Every year, I could have done better. So here's a new Ramadan and a new opportunity for the person to maximize his or her opportunity to get the blessings of Ramadan. If a person is doing the same thing in Ramadan that he did outside of Ramadan, then he's not understanding the spirit of the fast or the reason why the fast has been made obligatory. Or else, why would we have all of those instructions of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam informing the people? Like he said, it may be that a person fasts and he doesn't get anything from his fast except he makes himself hungry or thirsty. So the issue of fasting and the reason why it's been legislated is for the development of a person's spirituality, being a decent person, the taqwa of Allah. Any more questions? For the person who cannot fast, and we have to remember again in Surah Al-Baqarah, those ayats that mention the obligation of fasting. In the end of those ayat, it's important that we remember those ayats were finished with the statement of Allah, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah wants ease for you, and He doesn't want to make things difficult for you. So the person who is a diabetic, the person who is extremely old, the person who is pregnant, the person who is breastfeeding their child, the person who is traveling, they should take advantage of the concessions where the person who's in all of those conditions, they don't have to fast. So the one who has to feed a person for each day that he does not fast, it's permissible to give that money to your relatives who are back home. You can give that money to any Muslim who's going to use it. Don't use the money to give to the masjid. Don't use the money to give to any organization unless they're going to provide poor people, the needy people with food or clothes or something like that. So you can send the money back. The emphasis is don't fast if you don't have to fast. Person who has diabetes shouldn't think twice about fasting. The lady, the woman who's nursing a child shouldn't think she just feeds a poor person for each day that she doesn't fast. That can be done at the beginning of Ramadan or at the end of Ramadan. But at some point, the money has to be paid to feed those people as a kafara or expiation for the days that the person didn't fast. Aywa? What about the journey? If you mentioned traveling, Yeah, concerning the issue of traveling, Khwani, there's no established amount of time in terms of distance, established distance, where if a person travels that distance, they can combine their prayer or not fast Ramadan. Whatever the people of your locale consider to be a journey or a trip constitutes the permissibility of a person not fasting. Even if his job was to drive every single day and he's traveling, that's his job. He's a pilot of an airplane. The individual drives cargo on the land. If a person's job is traveling, he doesn't have to fast any of the days of Ramadan, but at some point he has to make it up during the course of his life. He has to make those days up. So it's what the people consider to be traveling in your locale. Now, Akhi, Abu Ibrahim.
What things do you abstain from other than food when you're fasting?
The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned in authentic hadith, ليس الصيام من اللغو والرفث إنما الصيام ليس الصيام من الأكل والشرب ولكن الصيام من اللغو والرفث. Fasting, the true fasting is not from your food and your drink. Real fasting is not from abstaining from food and drink, but real fasting is abstaining from lewd actions and from evil actions. So the person who's not refraining from the evil actions, then his fast is not the fast that Allah has legislated. So from what has to be avoided, in addition to food and drink, vain speech, acting ignorantly, as well as those things that we do that are not consistent with the deen of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So the issue, the emphasis is upon the good behavior in fasting in the month of Ramadan. So it's not just food and drink. Similar to the Bedouin man who came to the masjid and he sat down without praying correctly, but he made salat. The Nabi told him, go back and pray because you didn't pray. You didn't make salat correctly. So there are those people who don't fast correctly. So you have to avoid food and drink. Also, the woman who is on her monthly cycle does not fast. In addition to that, the individual who fasts is going to destroy them. It's going to bring upon unnecessary adverse circumstances, compromising their health, and obviously they shouldn't fast. Now, Akhi, tfaddal. I thought you had your hand up. Any more questions, Ikhwani? Also, if the sisters have any questions, they can feel free to put their questions forward. Now, concerning vomiting does not invalidate the fast if it's done as a result of naturally taking place. As for the person forcing himself to vomit, then that breaks the fast. And people are not going to do that. But if a person vomits involuntarily, it doesn't break the fast, keep fasting. But if the person intentionally forces himself to vomit, then there's a kafara. He broke his fast with what is not halal. The what? The inhaler is permissible to use because it's not giving the person any nutrients or nourishment. He's not taking that and it's providing for him. It's acting as a substitute for water. It's not acting as a substitute for food. So if he has to use the inhaler, it doesn't break the fast. Doesn't break the fast at all.
What is the kofar? What is the kofar if you break the fast?
Person who fasts and then he breaks his fast, the kafara, you first should understand that breaking your fast is a kabira from the kaba'ir. It's a major sin, from the biggest major sins, as fasting is, as we mentioned, one of the pillars of the redeem, one of the prerequisites to be a Muslim. The religion of Islam is predicated upon fasting along with the other pillars. So the person who breaks the fast and he doesn't have the right to break the fast, the kafara is big because it's kabira from the kaba'ir. First, he has to during that time, free an abd. He doesn't have the ability to do that right now. So he has to fast 2 months consecutively without having a break in those months consecutively. And lastly, if he is not able to do that, then he has to feed 60 needy people. So it's a kabira from the kaba'ir to break your fast intentionally. As for the weak hadith, we say avoid those weak hadith in the month of Ramadan and other than the month of Ramadan. And there are many, like the person who breaks his fast without a legitimate reason. If he were to fast the rest of his life, never would it compensate for the fast that he broke. That's not true. Although breaking your fast is a major sin, person can make tawbah to Allah and ask forgiveness for that. And he just has to continue to do the best that he can. So that hadith is not true. A person who breaks his fast in the month of Ramadan without a good reason, if he fasts the rest of his life, it'll never compensate it. That's not authentic.
I lived for 2 years in Malaysia, and some people there talked of, I never saw this, talked of people during Ramadan who would not swallow their saliva, but spit it out. What's the teaching on this?
Those are the issues that in reality they are funny, but they're sad at the same time. You'll find much of the speech that has been written in some of the works of Islam where people are encouraging others not to swallow their saliva, not to smell any smells. So the woman basically is not even allowed to cook because naturally there are going to be smells. These rulings and these positions, they make life complicated and unbearable for the people. Has nothing to do with Islam at all. If a person develops spit, no matter what type of spit it is, and you guys have to excuse me here because this is written in those books. If he just has the regular white spit, you can just spit it out or you can swallow it. And if it has the spit that comes from inside of the khayshum, and inside of it is if a person is sick, he's going to have different kind of articles in his nose. They say you can't swallow that. If you swallow that, you broke your fast. Again, the general rule is the thing that a person intakes, if he's not taking it in and it gives him nourishment and nutrition, like the inhaler, like he's going to get some needle, it's not giving him any nutrition. He has to get a needle, but it's not medication to nourish him. Then the general rule is that thing can be done. You can swallow the spit and you can swallow the zakum. It's no problem. That's some kalam that's in the books, but it should be rejected.
So this thinking would be innovation.
That thinking is wrong. At least that we can say that is wrong, is incorrect. There is a gum in the Muslim world. It is actually incense. It's like those little bukhur, the incense. Frankincense, if you chew it, it does not have any real taste to it. So some people go the other extreme and they say, okay, then you can chew these incense and you can swallow it because it's not giving you nourishment. No, that's also something that's far. We have to avoid all of the extremes. Anything that doesn't give you nourishment and you have to bring it in, it can't be avoided. Then you can take it in and it's not haram, but at the same time, you shouldn't chew that gum or anything else for that matter, right? You shouldn't chew gum. A person takes the gum and he's chewing gum and he's spitting it out. No, you shouldn't do that. Avoid things that can also put you on the gray area by the hima of the king. Don't graze the animals by the sanctuary. Any more questions? Akhi, Bilal. Someone what? During Ramadan, The issue of the witr comes up every year. If you're praying the Taraweeh, should you complete the Taraweeh behind the Imam that you pray the witr with? Or should you go home and pray the witr? Because if you complete the Taraweeh behind the Imam, you're praying witr, and then there should only be one witr in the night. That's what the Nabi said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you should only make one witr during the night. But if you don't make the witr with the Imam, you'll lose the rewards of the hadith. Whoever stands up and prays with the Imam in Ramadan, if he stands up and he prays with the Imam until he finishes, he'll get rewarded for praying the whole night time through. So it's from the issues that there's some ishkal in it. There's some mushkila in it. Whatever you say here, there's a problem. Whatever you say there, there's I won't say a problem, but Allah Azza wa Jalla is Ghafur Rahim, and Allah is Jawad, and Allah rewards abundantly. Stay with the Imam, and then if you get up later on, make one rakat, which has its establishment in the Sunnah as well. And that's the position of some of the people. It's ishkal issue. It's an ishkal issue. So you can't tell anyone to do this or to do that. One of the opinions is if you pray with the Imam to get the other reward, wake up in the middle, wake up when you're going to do your tahajjud and make one rakat. Your niyat over there was not for witr. This one rakat, cancel it out. Then you make your qiyam al-layl, and then you make your witr at the end. Has some ishkal. It's just one of those opinions. And I haven't read anywhere where someone put something forward to make it clear. I can't say here, pray with the Imam and go to sleep. Don't get up for qiyam al-layl. I can't say that to someone. So, Allahu A'lam. Pray with the Imam though, after the witr. You get all of that rewards, inshallah. Any more questions, Ikhwani? And if the sisters have any questions, you could put your questions either by sending them through a text message to Harun or by writing them. So, okay. Did the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam pray Taraweeh, and did he pray Qiyamul Layl? I don't know of any dalil that the Nabi did that, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wasallam. But if a person were to pray more than the 11 rakat that he prayed, a person sees the permissibility of doing that. He sees the permissibility of doing that. Then if he were to pray the Taraweeh with the people in Qiyamul Layl, if he sees that as being permissible, then that's his prerogative. As for dalil, I don't know any dalil that Mustafa, he made Salat Taraweeh and then Qiyamul Layl. I have no knowledge of that. Any more questions, Ikhwani? Hilal, Mama, you have any questions? Many people believe about Zakat, that Zakat is only paid in the month of Ramadan, and that's not true. Some of the ulama of Islam encourage that Zakat be paid in the month of Ramadan because that's the month of barakah and the month of khair, the ziyada vel khair. Abdullah bin Abbas mentioned that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the month of Ramadan, he was the most generous person, and he became more generous in the month of Ramadan. When Jibril used to meet him and he used to go over him, rehearse with him the Quran. So in the month of Ramadan, a person's, his efforts have to increase. If before Ramadan, he's just praying Fajr, that's it. In Ramadan, before Ramadan, he's doing this, he's doing that, she's doing this, she's doing that. In the month of Ramadan, if a person has not increased their attempts to make a taqwa, then that's a serious problem. It's a serious problem. So in regards to this issue, if a person embraced Islam in the month of Rajab, Sha'ban, Rajab is 2 months before Ramadan. He embraced Islam 2-3 months ago. If he has money for that whole year, and it's enough that meets the standard where he has to give the zakat, then he shouldn't wait until Ramadan because he's waiting beyond the time, or the person is waiting before the time. Person just embraced Islam 5, 6, 7 months ago. They don't have to give any zakat. Even if they had £5 billion, they embraced Islam 5 months ago, they don't have any give any zakat. And Ramadan is now. And that's because the money has not been with them for 1 year. So once the money is with the person and it's reached the amount where zakat is an obligation upon him, that's the month when he should pay his zakat. There's some ikhtilaf between the scholars. Can you pay zakat before the time or after the time? And this is important for people who are harvesting crops and so forth and so on. They project and they estimate. It's not always exactly sure. So sometimes they have to advance it or delay it. There's ikhtilaf in that. But in terms of people like us who paying zakat on our money, it's not just in Ramadan. But if you chosen Ramadan, then you pay it. When? You could pay it at the beginning of Ramadan, at the end of Ramadan, whatever pleases the person. But we should get the issue correct. Ramadan and zakat is not connected to Ramadan like that. Zakat is not connected to Ramadan like that. Naam, Sheikh.
So, how the Fitrana is calculated, and can that be given in the beginning of Ramadan or Shia, not the beginning of Ramadan?
How, who calculates what? The zakatul fitr. How it should be calculated. The zakatul fitr, yeah, we should go by what's been calculated by the community. The zakatul fitr. Yes, it should be calculated like that. I'm of that opinion. If the person wants to only stick to, it should be calculated by what the community considers. Yes. Zakatul fitr.
Can it be given in the beginning of Ramadan or it can't be given before Eid?
You have someone who needs it right now, you can give it to them. If you have a relative especially who you know they need it right now, you have an organization available, you want to pay it to them, they want it right now so that it'll get to the people by the end of Ramadan, then all of those issues are permissible, inshallah. You don't have to wait until the end of Ramadan, although that's better if it's easy and possible. Akhi, tfaddal. The what? Concerning the doors of Jahannam, in the month of Ramadan, they are closed. The doors of Al-Jannah, they are open. This is an indication of the khair of the month and why the scholars chose the month of Ramadan as the month that people should choose to give their zakat. And it's permissible to do that if the person wants to do it. Because from the virtues of Ramadan is that the doors of Al-Jannah are open and the doors of the Jahannam are closed. May Allah save us from the knot of Jahannam. And the Malaika tell to the people, come forward for the servant. Come forward and do the good. Because there's so many opportunities. So concerning that issue, what happens to the kofar in the month of Ramadan? People who die making shirk with Allah, ascribing partners to Allah, saying that someone else created them or is responsible for their existence and they're created. In the religion of Islam, the theology of Islam, if they die in that month, whether it's Ramadan or other than Ramadan, then the doors of Jahannam are for them. They're going to go to the Jahannam, whether it's Ramadan or not. So it's an irrelevant point, it's a mute point. You get no exemption for dying in the month of Ramadan, and the doors of Al-Jannah or the doors of the Nar are closed. Can't die, can't check out worshiping and inscribing partners with Allah Azza wa Jal. So the hadith is no conflict, no contradiction. The doors are closed. Allah knows what's going to happen with those people in terms of how, when, and where they enter to the Nar of Jahannam. Allahu Alam. But whether it's Ramadan or other than Ramadan, dying on shirk and kofar, the end result is the nar of Jahannam. إِنَّهُ مَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ دَخَلَ النَّارَ جَهَنَّمَ. Anyone who makes shirk with Allah is going to go into the nar of Jahannam. Ayat of the Quran, those people who just believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, the gates of Jannah won't be open until the camel can pass through the eye of the needle. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from that musibah. Aywa, akhi. Hey, my little brother over there. If a person is fasting and he eats or he drinks and he didn't mean to do it, it was by mistake, then he doesn't break his fast. He has to continue to fast. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that in this case, Allah made the individual fast. And that's from the general ease and gentleness of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, that He doesn't hold people responsible for things that happen as a result of negligence and ghafla in these types of situations. So he has to continue to fast and stop at that moment that he realized he drank or he ate something. Good question, little man. Mao, you, Hilal, you have any questions? You sure? Any more questions, Ikhwani? Tfaddal. Now, no doubt the shayateen are chained in the month of Ramadan, as the Nabi says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the doors of Jahannam are closed and the doors of Al-Jannah are open and the shayateen are chained up. But we see a lot of fitna and fasad going on in the month of Ramadan. So what's the deal with those shayateen? We has to have some explanation to it. Some of the ulama, they take all of those narrations of those hadith, and in one of the narrations, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the mararid from the shayateen, the real bad guys, the real terrible, the worst shayateen are tied up in the month of Ramadan. But there are other shayateen who are running wild and they're running loose, and they're going to be a trial and a tribulation because they're not going to allow people to fast in the month of Ramadan and get all the virtues in Ramadan. The Ramadan is an expiation, a kafara. From the previous Ramadan to now, the person gets his dhunub and his ma'asi wiped away. Shaitan is not going to give the person the opportunity to get those rewards without being a trial and a tribulation. So in the month of Ramadan and outside of the month of Ramadan, everybody has a shaitan with him, encouraging him to do crazy things. And then the other shayateen that are in the society, we have the TV, we have the music, we have the people, Muslims and not Muslims, they're going to be a trial and tribulation. So the meaning of the shayateen are tied up, the major shayateen, the big troublemakers, the knuckleheads from amongst them. Tafaddal. Now, if a person misses suhoor, and suhoor is being the breakfast that's taken right before the time to open up, to start the fast, if a person misses suhoor, he can't take any suhoor after that, even if it's going to be a long day. If it's going to be an extraordinarily long day, as for an example, he can be in Finland, he can be in Alaska, he can be in some of these places that because where they're located geographically, the nighttime, the daytime is extended. He feels it's too much, so he wants to take suhoor in order to last the day. If it's that difficult, then he doesn't have to fast. But that's something that has to be looked into. If a person misses suhoor for whatever reason, he overslept, when he woke up, he has to start his day off. If you missed it that day, then don't take a suhoor. But we should be keen, ikhwani, on taking the suhoor, as the Nabi told us, be different from the Jews. They used to miss out this suhoor, and they had hasad because of this suhoor. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the barakah of fasting is in taking the suhoor. Even if an individual is going to take something small like water, or dates. You should get up to try to make the suhoor because of the barakah in the suhoor.
My question is that can that person leave that fasting, make it up after Ramadan?
Yeah, if a person finds it, for an example, he's traveling in an area or the fast is just too long for him and it's really too long for him medically and so forth and so on. Can he break his fast? He can break his fast. Because as we mentioned in the ayat, Allah wants for you ease. He doesn't want for you difficulty. La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah doesn't burden a soul beyond his scope and his ability. You do what you have the ability to do. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in the Quran, fattaqullah mastata'tum. Fear Allah to the best of your ability. He told the man, if you can make salah standing up, do it standing up. If you have to make it sitting down, do it sitting down. If you have to do it lying down, then do it lying down. So it's up to the ability of the person. But the person has to have some level of consciousness and taqwa. He can't just say, it's too hard for me and he doesn't do it. He can't do that. So he's advised to check with someone of knowledge, of deen, person on the sunnah, explain the situation to him. If Ramadan is really too difficult and too long, let that be determined by him and somebody of knowledge that has some deen, has some consciousness, level of taqwa and comprehension of the deen. Now, from the tips to get the best out of Ramadan is to approach the month with the way that the Salaf used to approach Ramadan. They didn't look at it as a burden. The munafiqeen, the hypocrites, they look at the ibadat of al-Islam as a burden. If you read the Quran, ya Abdullah, and from what I encourage all of us to do in Ramadan is to read the Quran some more. From the characteristics of the munafiqeen is any ibadah, they look at it as being difficult. Allah mentioned about the salat, يَقُومُونَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ وَلَا يَقُومُونَ إِلَى كَسَالَةِ يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. When they stand up for prayer, they stand up in a lazy state and they only pray to show off to the people. When they're by themselves, they won't pray. Munafiqeen are the ones who look at doing any act of ibadah as difficult. Waking up for salat is difficult. They'll get up if people are around them and watching them. That's the sign of the munafiq. The Muslim who's like that. He's not a kafir, but he's like that. He won't pray unless other people are around him. It's too difficult. That's the action of the munafiq. Allah Ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Hujurat, يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ الْأَسْلَمُ قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّ عَلَيَّ إِسْلَامَكُمْ بَلِ اللَّهُ يَمُنُّ عَلَيْكُمْ إِنْ هَدَاكُمْ لِلْإِيمَانِ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. They look at their Islam, the munafiqs, they look at their Islam as being a favor unto you, Ya Muhammad. The fact that they're Muslims, the hypocrites, they look at the fact that they became Muslims is a favor unto you. Tell them, don't look at it as a favor unto me. Instead, it's a favor that Allah gave you people, that He guided you to Islam if you only believed. So the munafiq, he looks at Ramadan, oh boy, I can't eat, I can't do this. La, the Muslim has to look at Ramadan, this is a golden opportunity. A golden opportunity to get off some of the dhunub and the ma'asi and to get a lot of the rewards. Another practical tip of Ramadan, before going into Ramadan, situation needs some tawbah. Why would a person fast all through the month of Ramadan and he still owes people money, he still has uquq al-walidain, he still has a lot of salat that he hasn't done, he still has all of the mistakes that they make. Ramadan has to be approached with that whole concept and the idea of making tawbah, trying to go into the month without any blemishes, to the best of your ability. Also, obviously, the sister that give practical advice at Ramadan, the girl has to make up her days that she owes from the last Ramadan if there are any days. Are you going to go into the new Ramadan and you still owe past Ramadans? Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to wait for this month, Sha'ban, to make up the days that she missed in Ramadan. They said, why did you wait until this late, right before Ramadan? She said, I used to take care of the Nabi. So she has to try to get her days in tune. Also, from the practical advices of Ramadan is try to cut down watching TV and spending your time with people who are time wasters, people who don't have high determination. They like just to talk about he said, she said. They really not people who are trying to aspire for a higher level of spiritual existence. You have to really be careful about people who you have in your company. Birds of a feather flock together. If you're trying to be spiritual and you're trying to live upright and you're trying to get the most out of the blessed month of Ramadan, but you're surrounded with people who that's not their vibe, that's not what they're thinking about, then they're going to be a trial and tribulation for you. So the time in Ramadan is critical. Person has to almost become anti-sociable. Now, I'm not telling you to be anti-sociable because that's not an Islamic trait to be anti-sociable. You have to deal with people no matter what their situation is. Everybody is not perfect. We're not perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But if you're not haris and bakhil on your time, if you don't look at your time as being precious and you're stingy with it, people will waste your time. And you'll get a lot of things in this dunya that can be returned back to you. Even if you lost a limb, the limb can be returned back to you. They can give you a prosthetic limb, but you're not going to get that time returned to you. So the serious person goes into the month of Ramadan the way the Salaf used to do. Aisha radiallahu anha, in the month of Ramadan, she used to tell the people, send me what you have written of the Quran. She wanted to read the Quran in the written form, although she memorized the Quran. Al-Imam Malik, Sufyan al-Thawri, those ulama, they stopped teaching classes in Ramadan. No more teaching. And people came from all over the Muslim world to meet them. It was a big thing. But if you arrived in Medina, Imam Malik didn't teach hadith in his lessons in the month of Ramadan. He turned to the book of Allah. Al-Imam Sufyan al-Thawri in Kufa, al-Iraq, people came there to meet him in the month of Ramadan. He stopped teaching in Ramadan. They turned to what? Engaging in taking advantage of their time by reading the book of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So be careful. Another practical advice, the internet in the month of Ramadan. If you're going to use the internet in Ramadan, use it to listen to the book of Allah, use it for beneficial kalam. As for the internet itself, tweeting and there's Facebook and these issues like that, a waste of time. Ramadan will pass you by and you didn't really get anything of benefit from the month. So every year, again, every year, we deal with the same issue, golden opportunity. This person said, what advice can you give to those who are interested in Islam? And the other one here is, if a sister already takes the contraceptive pill, can she take it for the whole of Ramadan without a break to avoid the issue of the menstruation? Concerning someone is interested in Islam, then I would advise that you take Islam from balanced people who know their religion. I would not take the concepts of Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism or any other religion from evil people who are from that religion, ignorant people who are from that religion. I have relatives who are Christians. I want to sincerely know about Christianity. I would be an idiot. I would be insane to go to my cousin who I know is a criminal, doesn't know anything about the religion, and his behavior is not reflective of that religion. I'll be an idiot to take from him. Similarly, if someone is interested in Islam, connect to people who know Islam and they're moderate. Because Muslims have crazy people, Muslims have people who are ignorant, Muslims have people who know what they're talking about, and Muslims have people who don't know what they're talking about. Put yourself in a position of power to make an informed decision. Islam is right, is incorrect. Talk to people who are balanced and that they know what they're doing. As for the issue of the contraception, if the lady is taking that, then it's permissible to continue so that she doesn't have a menses, a menstruation, a period. And that's not tampering with the creation of Allah Azza wa Jalla, as there are some authentic athar, narrations, that some of the Salaf used to take certain herbs during that time to alter the period that will come to the woman, inshallah. So it's something that is permissible. And Allah is a'la and a'la. We have a question here. The next week's lecture. Any more questions? Mau, Hilal, you have any questions? Mau, you have a question? Good question, Akhi. I think it's the most important question of election of the night. If a person doesn't pray, does he have a fast? Wallahi, tallahi, billahi, wa rabbil Kaaba. The one who doesn't pray, wallahi, he doesn't have any reward of fasting. He doesn't have any reward of fasting. And that's because salah is a more important prerequisite to a person being a Muslim, more important than the fast. More important. The one who doesn't pray is fallen into kofar. His Islam is suspect. Her Islam is in jeopardy. We're suspicious about that person's Islam. Similar to the one who prays, and he prays without any clothes on. Can you imagine a guy praying, he makes wudu, or he doesn't make wudu, and he just prays without wudu, and he prays without any clothes on, without any wudu? During the time of the Nabi, that man, he prayed, and the Nabi said, go back and pray, because you didn't pray. You didn't pray. You didn't do the movements the correct way. You were moving too fast. The way you perform that prayer, that is not salat in al-Islam. Some people, if you were to look, ikhwani, and we gave this lecture here before, there are many, many ayat of the Quran, verses of the Quran that were mentioned, and a hadith, talking about those people who do things of good deeds, but those things will be rendered null and void because the way they were doing it or their condition while they were doing those particular deeds. وَقَدِّمْنَا إِلَى مَا عَمِلُوا مِنْ عَمَلٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ هَبَاءً مَنْثُورًا. Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah said, we will bring their deeds forward and we'll make them like scattered particles. They did all of those efforts, but they said that Allah had a son. They said that the moon was Allah, the monkey was Allah. They said that the sun was Allah. They said that Allah didn't exist. So as a result of that, all of those good deeds will be rendered null and void. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in the Quran, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَعْمَالَهُمْ بِسِيَابٍ بِقِيئَةٍ يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاءً حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَهُ لَمْ يَجِدْهُ شَيْئًا. Those people who disbelieve and they do those righteous deeds, their deeds are like the people, it's just a mirage in the desert, a mirage. When he comes and he thinks the water is there and the well is there, he gets there and he's nothing. Yawm al-Qiyamah, because he made shirk with Allah. So with that being the case, not making the salat renders a person's Ramadan null and void, renders his Hajj null and void, renders his Islam null and void. You have to pray. So in the month of Ramadan, let us try not to be of the people who don't make salah. Okay, Khwani, we're going to stop here, inshallah ta'ala. Next week, there is a lecture in Ramadan. Oh, man. Oldbury is hardcore. Hardcore. You sure about that? Next week at 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Oh, the fast will be open here. Okay, next week the fast will be open here and there will be a lecture as well. Okay. Will there be food after the fast or it's just dates and stuff? Yeah, it is. Oldbury is hardcore, man. Khair, inshallah. I heard that there were some women here who may be interested in Islam. Again, I don't know about their journey, how they got to this point or how that sister got to this point where she is. But I think if she's serious about contemplating Islam, you have to meet up with balanced people, irrespective of whether they're from Pakistani background, Indian background, African background, or whatever. Meet up with people who know what they're talking about and put your questions across. As for the ignorant Joe Schmo from the Muslims, then don't look to what they have to say because they'll give a bad indication and reality of what Islam is. Today's talk was a specific talk because we're about to fast. So it may not be the most appropriate talk for you. So don't judge this talk as the one that was supposed to blow you away and this is No, this is a talk where we're just giving the community an opportunity to ask any questions that they have about this big issue. Many talks that take place before that, some of them could have been for you. Allah knows best. But I think we have some balanced sisters over there. Sisters who, if you were to ask them questions about this religion, if they didn't know, they're going to say, I don't know. They're not going to give you some hocus pocus stuff. But don't go to these cultural Asians and these messages and that nonsense, that crap that they believe in, that they're passing off as Islam. Don't go to that junk. If I wanted to be on the culture of the Pakistanis, I would be on their culture. I didn't become a Muslim to be Pakistani. I came into Islam to have a relationship with Allah. But Pakistanis are the ones in this area. Some of them are balanced and they know what they're talking about. Like some of our sisters who are here, inshallah. If they don't know, they'll tell you, I don't know, and they'll help you to dig further. Okay? So we're going to stop here, inshallah ta'ala. Don't forget, next week in Ramadan, the class is going to take place, and then the break fast will take place after that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.